Savanna is a sports journalist based out of Lakeland, Florida, making a mark in professional softball for 8 years. She's currently the senior reporter for the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, or the AUSL. She is the league's lead writer, sideline reporter for TV broadcasts, and we can't share it today, but she has some new projects brewing. Savanna has been a mainstay in women's sports, covering pro basketball and volleyball. She also works as a studio host and analyst for the American Conference, primarily covering USF athletics. I'm so excited to feature her and have her live with us on the Fearless Warrior podcast. And Savanna, how does it feel to be on the other side of the interview mic?
It's so weird. It does give me some good empathy for the people that I do this with all the time of like just, oh man, so this is what it feels like because I don't do it often.
To be fair, I did send you the questions and I would love to get a behind the scenes. Let's just start with what's your title? What does a day to day look like? And what do you have coming up? Give us here's where I'm at, AB.
Sure. I feel like I do two things. My full-time job is as a senior reporter for the AUSL, which I'm so grateful to have. And I've worked with the AUSL or AU Pro Sports since it began in 2020. Took a long time to have this title, which is always the title that I wanted and was my goal. So, really grateful for that. I write for our website, like you mentioned. I covered our athletes and our teams, and I also do some sideline reporting for our broadcasts and try and really just grow the storytelling aspect of pro softball. Then outside of that, I do a lot of freelance work. I was a play-by-play voice or one of them for USF softball this season. I sideline a lot for the American Conference, did some college football for the very first time this past fall. I do college basketball, so it's really fun to get to do a lot of different things, but all of it really be tied to the goal of just being someone who shares stories for athletes and coaches.
And you yourself, before we hit record, for context, you are an athlete, you understand sports. And although we're females and we didn't have the opportunity to play football, what does that mean to you to have lived in these athletes' shoes from
Oh my
their
gosh.
perspective?
Yeah, it's everything. It honestly starts from I'm a coach's kid. My dad coached high school basketball for gosh, 25, 30 years. So it was get picked up from school, you're dropped to the other side of the gym. Please don't kill your brother in the 2 hours that dad is at practice. And so that was our life. It revolved around my dad coaching. My grandfather was a Major League Baseball player. And for me, it's really special to have grown up with this huge sports emphasis in my life, know that I was not going to go pro as an athlete. But now I share this with my parents sometimes. I would be so cool to be able to tell my grandfather, I made the show too, just like you did. It just looks a little bit different. So it's everything. I'm so grateful for what sports has given me because it's just opened up all these doors that didn't have anything to do with playing in college or as a pro, and that's okay.
And what do your parents say about this? Are they surprised? Did you pick up microphone? Give us a peek of your childhood. How did you know that this would become a passion? What was that
Yeah.
moment?
So I was the weather girl for my elementary school in fourth grade.
Okay.
So it was very clear I was going to do something like this. Fifth grade got promoted to anchor. And then when I was in high school, if you've ever watched the movie Friday Night Lights, like how they treat football, I grew up in Lakeland, Florida. We have a jumbotron, we play in a stadium, and there was a live stream of our games, and they would let students help. And I just was like, hey, can I be a part of this? And they said, sure, you want to be our sideline reporter? I was like, yeah, I've done that since I was in elementary school, things like that. And I remember my first game, light went on, and I knew I was live for this game, and I was like, oh, I love this. Ninth grade, 14 years old, I knew. So my parents are not surprised. I know some parents may say, don't go into journalism, you'll never make any money and it'll be so hard. And it was hard. And but they were have always been so supportive of me, and just really it's so fun to share this with them because for them they were like, yeah, every new opportunity I get, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I can't believe it. And they so often say to me, what do you mean you can't believe it? We believe it. So I'm very grateful for them and how they have just been these ultimate cheerleaders for me.
How do you feel like you fostered that passion where obviously some of these opportunities at the moment were not paid or they were just an opportunity for you to get your feet wet? What did that evolution look like? Did you just keep saying yes to these opportunities until you landed a more formal gig? What did that evolution look like for you?
Yeah, I think that was something that was very formative for me in high school and college was that none of that work was paid and that was okay. I was getting reps and I was getting experience. I covered the Gator baseball team and football team for most of my time in college. Had some really incredible opportunities doing that. What does it feel like to be in a press conference talking to Power 5 head coaches of major programs, sometimes being the only woman in the room, which that was, very interesting to get used to, and then getting some gigs where, and I still try and tap into this a lot. I don't take myself too seriously. I was doing youth baseball and softball for most of the beginning part of my professional career. And I treated those as I am going to get good at talking to kids because if I can talk to kids and get them to speak on camera, I can talk to anybody. And so that was really formative for me to just grind, honestly, just to have those periods of this is hard and maybe I'm not making a lot of money or I'm doing things just for experience. And I'm so grateful because every time a break has happened or a big opportunity, people often ask me, are you nervous? And I'm not nervous because I've worked for this and I failed in private many times. I bombed when no one was watching. So when it's time to be under bigger lights, I'm like, let's go. This is it. Those are very important for me to fail on a small scale so I could exceed on big scales.
Whoa, mic drop. That's a quotable right there. I was literally going to ask you. I think that there's a new generation of athletes. We have a lot of athletes listening, but also of a lot of athletes that are entering their careers or trying to decide what degree do I want to get. And they're playing softball or they're playing a sport as well as being a student athlete. And I think sometimes we forget what you're explaining of sometimes to get your teeth wet and you're going to get knocked in the chops and you're probably not going to get paid very well. Would you be where you are today without those experiences?
Oh gosh, no. And I have this thread through my career that is softball, which to set the scene, it's 2018, my very first job. I was working for the youth organization USSSA, which I bet a bunch of kids have played because
Yep.
I did too. So I was the reporter for this company. And then in the summer, they had a pro softball team. And that was where I first got into softball pretty regularly and where I got a lot of sideline reps. At the time, the players were making no money. I'm not making a lot of money. We're on a live stream somewhere, definitely not on ESPN or ESPN2 or U like we are now. And it was hard. And anytime I told people where I worked, it was huh? What is that? I've never heard of that. And that is hard to feel like you're trying to make it in sports and no one has a clue what you're doing. Fast forward to 2026, and I can say, oh, yeah, I work for the AUSL. We're the partner of Major League Baseball. And people go, oh, I know what that is. Or I watch those games. Or, yeah, that's the league that Carlin Pickens got drafted to, or Najee Kennedy got drafted to. And it's, yeah. So you think about, like, why was that important? I did not think my career would be in softball because I couldn't see the opportunity that was going to come, but I was in the right place at the right time and I stuck with it. There were a lot of people that maybe shifted to other sports or went other routes, but as pro softball grew, I grew with it and I wouldn't be the AUSL's reporter and really define myself as pro softball's reporter if I hadn't been at that job that was really tough. And so it's easy to look back now and go, man, I see why I was there. Because at the time I was like, why am I in this job? This is so random. How is this going to work out? How am I ever going to get bigger and better opportunities? And the kind of lesson for me was just stay the course.
And I think in those opportunities, in your mind, you weren't going to give anything less than your best, even if outsiders saw it differently. And that's the evolution of your belief, right? And we talk with our athletes all the time of knowing your why. And if you know your why, it's going to carry you through really hard seasons. And as an athlete, sure, the early mornings in the weight room and the grind of travel and all of these things, as an athlete, there's a payoff, right? But in your career, there's a big fat question mark. And for you to
Yeah.
be able to sit here today and say, I'm employed full time by a pro softball league is so cool for
Oh
all
my
of
gosh.
us, for all of
Yeah.
us.
And I feel maybe not pressure isn't right, but I understand the magnitude of that to go like, I have this job and there are going to be people who have this job after me and who are going to be a part of this with me as it grows because it won't always just be me. We're going to have to hire more people. And so I think about that a lot of like how I treat this and how I act and how I cover this league and show the importance of this role. That sideline is not some fluff job and that storytelling is important. It's going to matter for the next woman who comes and does this job. And so I try and think about that a lot. And like you said, working hard all the time. I think about some of those early gigs that I did. To me, everything was a World Series to me. It might as well have been Game 7 with the whole world watching. But that's why now I don't get nervous and why I'm still proud of that work. Even though I see how young I am and how I was learning and growing, I can be proud of things that I've done in the past, especially when I go back and watch them, because I know that maybe it's not as good as I am now, but shoot, I was giving my best even then when no one was really watching or it was a smaller audience.
Which is so incredible. So many lessons to unpack there on so many levels. I want to go back to something that you said that relates to pressure. Is you said, I try not to take myself too seriously. Can you
Yeah.
tell us how that's a superpower? What does that look like? What does that sound like in a career?
Yeah, I think I did that very naturally at the beginning of my career. And it's been something that I've had to consciously decide to do as maybe the opportunities and things have gotten more serious. I feel like I've learned that the most, though, from the athletes that I've been around. Being around these, some of them are Olympians, Team USA, or represent their countries. And a lot of them talked to me about this concept, and it took me a long time to understand, of balancing the fear of failure and how the fear of failure only gets in your way of success. And I was like, could not understand this concept. But really, it's just that, like, when you become free of what the result is, oftentimes you end up playing your best. And so I just, for a long time, I kept hearing players talk about that. And it was Megan Faremo, who played at UCLA. She plays for the Talons now, who really helped me understand it of just giving yourself that freedom, but also knowing, okay, did I prepare? Yes. Am I as ready as I could be? Absolutely. So why would I have fear in any setting? Why would I take myself too seriously or feel like I'm too good to do things or I'm too experienced for that or I'm too far along? And that I think is when we just shine. I think that's when athletes shine. I think that's when, as a broadcaster, I shine. It's when I'm most relaxed and when I'm conversational and when I'm best on the fly because I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm not letting fear or nerves or anxiety get in the way of enjoying the performance, just like athletes. And it's cool. I think that's special for me is even though I'm not an athlete in my profession, it is very performance based. And so I try and take the things that I hear about these softball players and apply it when I can. And that has been a big one of just not taking things too seriously. You can work hard, but not live and die by results, which I think is good.
Yeah, and I think when we think about the effect of our thoughts creating our reality, if you're holding that mic, you're clinching through it,
Yes,
the athlete's going to feel it, right?
totally.
Okay, so this is a perfect example. I want to give everyone an example. If you're not following Savanna, you will be after this episode. I just want to give one example of you told the story that Sam Landry knew sign language. So part of your job, some of the best conversations, some of the best stories where the fans really get to feel like, I know Sam Landry because Savannah shared this part of their lives. How often are some of these stories not even sport related? And is that a strategy?
I think the best ones aren't sport related, to be honest. When you started talking about Sam, that came to mind. And then a story about Charlize and Sachelle Palacios' grandmother came to mind and playing for someone bigger than them. Those are, I think, the stories that resonate because that's the part that makes us all feel so human. And I think, too, a big part of that is just trying to have good relationships with these athletes to where they open up and share that side of themselves. I think that's when things are the best. Probably one of my favorite stories last season was about Jalen Alchin with the Talons, who is a substitute teacher in the off season, and it's not glamorous, not what people would expect. But I think that's what made a lot of fans fall in love with her is because she feels like this underdog. I relate to being in that job where you got, man, you got some job that's just helping you get along. So many of us feel that, and it has nothing really to do with being a pro softball player, but just being a person and being open and honest. And when I find those stories, I know, oh, this is it. You get that. I call it like when I'm like, that's the nugget or that's the golden story of the time. And so just trying to be in tune with that and see that and not get too caught up in the day to day is when I can see those stories and then try and share them the best that I can.
Yeah, which is, I think about even on the college side, the senior letters and the behind the scenes stories and the, oh my gosh, Savannah, the videos where the
Oh,
athletes that have parents that are out of town or even in a different country and they fly the parents in and they haven't seen each
yeah.
other for weeks. Oh my gosh, those are like immediate tears start flowing.
Yeah.
And I think those are the stories that if they go viral, right? I know your job has probably changed a lot in the past 8 to 10 years with social
Yeah.
media, even. Talk to us about that side. You know that there's probably a lot of eyeballs that are coming to you and coming to our sport through social media. How does that play into your job?
Yeah, it's been, I will say I was a little resistant to that change because in journalism school, especially, oftentimes success was how big of a network are you on? How big is the platform that you're on? And so for me, what I felt like was ultimate eyeballs, and it is important, was linear TV. I get that. Being on ESPN, and that is huge for our game and being on networks like that. But at the same time, in the reel of Sam Landry, I can reach more people with that Instagram reel than the amount of people who watch me do that broadcast hit live on television. That's crazy to me. And I've got a really incredible peer, Adeline Nicholson. She's the social media manager for the AUSL, who just has really helped me shape my thinking of, hey, you've got to adapt. This is important for you and your personal growth and for our league. And just seeing the way that storytelling on social, especially when it's done and when it's geared for social, can really expand a brand and a platform. And I'm trying my best. It doesn't come naturally to me to post about myself because that's the whole part of my job that I don't want to. It's this. Oh, I'm being interviewed. This is strange. But trying to understand, and I think that's maybe the lesson for kids listening is there are some athletes or maybe people that you follow that there's a certain type of content that works for them. And I tried that. I tried the days and the life. I tried making it about me and I couldn't keep up with it and I couldn't do it because it made me so uncomfortable, which is fine. It didn't feel like a good use of my time. Editing that reel about Sam, I was so excited to post that. I couldn't wait to see people respond. And that was a good lesson for me is for me to embrace social for my personal branding as a TV personality. I had to do what worked for me. And it was how do I make these stories bigger and reach more people because I want it to be about them. And that's where I found my sweet spot. It took me years to get there though.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to you're not afraid to get the reps, to get the experience. And that's where your confidence comes from because you've failed, you've lived it, you've found the tweaks, you know your zone of genius where I've tried to edit a day in the life. That's too much filming. I
I
lose
just
track.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I'm pretty sure I have footage of a day in the life of a mental performance coach that is still just in my camera roll.
Yeah, you just gotta abandon it. I did.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? We're gonna delete the trash folder on those.
I do have some fun questions. This conversation has just flowed so fun. But what is your favorite part of the job?
Oh man, it's definitely the relationships that I get to form with these athletes and coaches. It's fun because, as a reporter, you're really not rooting for a team, but I do root for people's stories. I root for when I know a player has been working on something or going through something, and then they have their breakthrough moment. That is so special to get to watch. And that's just something that I really can't put a ton of like I don't know. It's hard to describe. You've
Yeah.
known these people for so long and you kind of become a part of their lives and their journey, either as a spectator or maybe you get to tell their story at some point. And forming that trust, that to me is the one thing that I have that I should protect at all costs is that trust and that relationship. That by far the best part of my job, for sure.
And so my next question is I saw a video of you getting a Gatorade dunk or an ice bath post game. How often do you get to be right there in the best of best celebrations, the walk-offs, the Gatorade dunks, all of those moments? You're right there with them.
Yeah, it's neat. No matter where I am, whether it's football, you're right there on the sideline and you can hear, or it's in the dugout and you're there for all of the moments, the good and the bad. And it's really interesting. And I think to me, the one thing that probably doesn't ever make it on TV or in a direct storytelling is hearing the way people coach, hearing the way that players communicate. Some of my favorites is watching the players who come off the field and immediately write in a notebook. That's the stuff that only I get to see, and that is so cool to me. I want to be that close. I have a very hard time now sometimes going to things as a fan because I want to feel and be closer. But I knowing that's how some people feel, that drives a lot of what I do of like, how do I bring people into this experience or what's going on in this team or with this player? And the Gatorade bass are fine. That is so fun to me. I've tried to get good at catching them. When we were at the AUSL championship and they were going to dunk Sydney Romero, I could hear somebody saying Savannah, say my name, and I just very casually tried to turn. So the softball gals give me a heads up when they can, which is funny.
That's awesome. I love what you said about the notebook. I do want to go back to that because as a fan, especially as a mental performance coach that has to watch a lot of her clients on TV or watch virtually, when reporters get to give us that inside look, a lot of what we do on the mental side of the game is only unveiled by journalists, by
Mm,
reporters, are
interesting.
showing. So when you think about self-talk, the skill of self-talk, we're
Mhm.
never going to be able to hear what's going on into an athlete's mind. But what you said of if they're journaling their reps or their post-game reflections, or even in the middle of a game when they're adjusting their at bats, those are the mental skills that often goes unseen. But to a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 16 or 18-year-old, if we can show them that the Montana Fouts, the Sam Landrys, all of them, I'm blanking on names, but there's so many athletes that want to share that side of the game, and that
Yeah.
only gets shared through your role, which is, I just have to send so much gratitude for because that's growing the game too.
That's so interesting. I would have never thought about that. But it's funny you say that because I think sometimes, especially when I'm talking about that kind of stuff, I would give anything to go back when I was in middle school and high school playing high school softball, which is a game I had played my whole life. And by that point, my self-talk had gotten so bad. And I didn't even know what that was to identify that's why I'm not playing well. And I do try and keep that in mind sometimes, especially when I ask questions like, take me through that at bat. What were you thinking before you stepped into the box? And I wish I could take 12-year-old me and show her Haley McClenny and go, listen to her. Listen to
Yes.
what she's saying and how she's thinking. She's not afraid to fail. And even if she does, like she can adjust. And so it's funny you say that because it's interesting to see also how, and I don't know if you come across this a lot, there's a lot of different ways to be successful. You have the very cerebral players. You also have the ones that kind of don't think. And you have the very emotional players, the ones that have to stay steady, the ones that like that data, the ones that don't. And I think as a person, it's made me very open-minded to how there's a lot of different ways to be successful, which I can, that to me will probably fascinate me for the rest of my life of like, how are those two people so different, but still so good?
Yeah, and both playing on the same team or in the
Huh.
same league with different results. And I think just the routines too of how often do you have to show up pregame? Because a lot of the mental skills that we teach, like visualization, mindfulness, pregame routines, all of these things that are leading up to the success of the pros, even. Do you get a behind the scenes? Are you interviewing them pregame, or did they say, oh, we're an hour before a game, we're locked in?
Yeah, it's funny whenever I meet an athlete, especially a softball player that I'm going to probably cover long term. One of the first things I ask her is I go, "Hey, when's your moment where you need me to not be near?" And most of the time they don't really care, which is interesting to me. They're all pretty laid back. But then I think the second part of that is just being in tune with someone's body language and social cues. Because I also know with even if they told me it's okay, I can tell when I should not, when I should give them some space. And so I always ask that question because for everybody it's a little bit different. And just knowing that, and I put a little note by their name in my charts that I keep about that because everybody is different. There are some players that I can talk to in the middle of the game, or will come talk to me in the middle of the game. Tori Vidalis comes to mind in particular. We'll be
But
talking
she's
about
also comfortable holding a microphone with her career.
yes, where I'm like, Tori can I can talk anytime. And she is just as serious and dedicated as the next player. So
Yeah.
it's funny how that works.
So good. I think you've made it very clear, Savanna, that your job and the whole point of this podcast series is we see what you do, and it's so much more than just grabbing a microphone and asking questions. That's very apparent to me. And we know this and we want to shine light on it. What would this look like if somebody was interested in this career? What path, what advice, what education, what would you want them to study? What are your tips?
Yeah. I think if you're in high school, you can be like me and start right now. And it is also easier for you to start right now. So one of the things that I sometimes have done in my free time is I'll mentor some high school students who are interested in media. And my dad was an AD at the high school that I went to in Lakeland, and we started this program for this a couple years ago. And you have full access to your high school. So whatever it is that maybe you want to do, and I'll just give the context of maybe sports reporting. You can start that now if you have a phone. You don't even have to have a mic, but you can order one on Amazon and a tripod and get reps. That's what I did. I was doing that for my high school when I was there, and I did it mostly for football. But you can start your own Instagram page and post it. You don't even have to post it. And I think just getting that experience, asking good questions. I remember being in high school at football games with my dad on the sideline getting ready to do a post game interview, and I didn't know anything about football. And saying to my dad, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Is this a good question? And then I took it a little further. I would talk to the football coaches on campus. Hey, when you did this, why'd you do that? Like, being curious is the number one thing you can do, and not being afraid to ask what you might consider a stupid question, because a lot of times that's just going to be how you learn. So I think that's a starting point, is finding ways to get reps even if they're just on social media is important. And then I think when it comes to college, for me, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure I ended up somewhere where I would have a lot of experiential opportunity. So that's why I went to the University of Florida. I worked in a newsroom, radio, TV. I got to be a beat reporter for the programs on campus, and that was very important to me to building skills. I think big picture, you cannot be a one trick pony. You got to be able to do a lot of different things, which is good. It's going to help you. For me, I can edit my own videos if I need to. I can shoot if I have to. It'll be decent, but that's okay. And I just tried to become very self sufficient. I never wanted to be able to say, oh, I can't do that because I don't know how. And that got me through a big part of my career of just being able to be very self sufficient to where now I don't need all those skills, but if I ever need to tap into them, I can. So I think that is the piece of advice that I could give now is get those reps. If you're very serious about this, choose a college where you're going to have opportunity. And then from there, just try and become very well rounded.
I think a very apparent theme through all of this interview is reps gives you the confidence, whether
Yeah.
it's in the beginning. And I think you're an incredible testament of that because you are now the face of pro softball and you get to bring us these stories. So this has been so cool. Let's zoom out. Okay.
Okay.
So if we zoom out and you could see the future of pro softball or even women's sports in general, where do you see this going for your career or just professional sports as a whole? What is 5 years from now or 10 years now? What does life look like?
Yeah, I think the big thing for pro softball is that we will have expanded our teams. Six is awesome. We've never steadily had six, even since the NPF and the leagues before that. Six is a big number for pro softball in teams. If we can maintain that and then expand beyond it, we will have reached heights that we've quite literally never had. So that really comes to mind because there's a lot of players who didn't get a golden ticket this year, last year, current pros that should be on a roster, but there aren't enough spots. So I think expansion is priority number one. Two, we need some facilities. There is one pro softball stadium in the country, and it's in Rosemont, Illinois. That's it. Playing at the colleges is awesome. I think the fields need to be a little bit bigger for the bats that these girls have. So I think that would be maybe 10 years out. An incredible thing to see is pro softball stadiums. And I think too, the one that I would just love is if people say, "Hey, where do you work?" If I said AUSL, that is a recognition in their brain as if I'd said MLB. That to me would just be I've made it.
Yeah, so cool.
I've made it, which I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So that's what I really see is expansion of teams and then facilities. And I think even a part of that could be partnering with Major League Baseball like the Volts do. We'll play in a pro stadium, even though it's a baseball field, and they'll convert it. So I think that's really where I see this going in 5 to 10 years. But college softball has proven that this is a revenue driver. It's got crazy TV ratings. And it's the pro game is catching up to what the college game has shown us is possible. So I see a lot of that growth for us too.
So incredible. And we're here to witness it all. So thank you for showing us behind the scenes because what you do is a lot of work and we just get to see the final product.
Thanks.
So,
It's cool to be on this ride. Like,
yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts or advice? Again, zooming out, even if it's not career focused, what piece of advice would you give to young athletes out there listening?
Okay. Young athletes. I think the lessons you learn in your sport are going to last you the rest of your life, whether you play in college or pro or not. They're going to last forever. And I still tap into some of the lessons that I learned playing softball and volleyball in particular, just at the high school level. I do think you need to start trying to get in touch with what really sets you on fire. Like, when are you most excited? When are you happiest? And maybe even when are you doing something when things are hard and you're still enjoying it? So maybe even taking the happy part out. And I think that is going to maybe be your guide of, okay, this is maybe where I have some natural ability and gifts. Because I do think all of us have some really incredible gifts. And just being in settings to test them. I ended up being a sports reporter, but I did chorus and musical theater. And I tried to do acting for a little while. And I did all these other things. And it's funny, my mom has asked me, does that feel like a waste of time to you? And I was like, no, that was a process of elimination to end me up exactly where I was supposed to. And then I did it again in college. I tried the local news station in college. I tried things outside of sports. I did radio and TV. And I was just ticking things off. Oh, I don't like that. That's not right for me. And I think a big piece of advice I would give is even if you don't have the answer to exactly it is what you like and love to do, it's just as important to know what you don't like and love to do. And I think that gets missed a lot as we're trying to figure out who we are as people in our professions. So you got to try new things. And you got to
Yeah.
not like it, finish it, and be like, I'm never going to do that again, but at least I know.
You got the reps.
Yeah,
It comes
you
back to
tried
reps.
it.
You got the reps. Yeah.
Tried. That was really important for me. And I think sometimes, especially with the specialization right now of young athletes, no, play it all, do it all. My dad was big on that. The
Yeah.
multi-sport athlete will and always prevail in life too. Try things. That's my piece of advice.
So good. Where at the time of this episode, it's May, you're gearing up for the season. Where can we follow you? Where can we stay connected? I know you're Savvy Co on Instagram. We'll link that below. We've got 6 teams to follow. We should link every
Yeah.
single AUSL team, the main page as well. Is there anywhere else we should be following your journey?
I feel like that's the biggest one. I post on Instagram the most. Like I said, I'm trying to get better at it. If you're trying to tap into pro softball, find the team that's closest to you or has the player that you really enjoyed watching in college and follow them. Honestly, might be a good idea for me to do is here's a guide if you're trying to pick your team based on personality because they all are very distinct. But you'll see me doing some American Conference baseball next week, and then the AUSL season kicks off on June 9th, and it'll be all softball, all gas, no breaks for the next 2 months, which is going to be so
Yep.
fun.
You're in it and I'm ready. I got to buy some plane tickets.
Yes, you do.
Savannah, thank you for your time today. This has just been incredible.
Oh my gosh, thank you for the platform. I love to just be able to talk to whether it's like young athletes or people trying to figure out themselves because I don't think anybody tells you how hard that is. And so I'm grateful for things like Fearless Warrior who just try and give some good and sound guidance because we need it. And I think we just need to be reminded of the good things about us and pursuing that. So I appreciate what you do.